Actually, you should have given a talk. Yeah, like my dissertation title is really long, and my dissertation is really long. The first chapter is 60 pages. The second chapter is 77 pages. So yeah, so trust me, I'm not gonna talk about my dissertations, so you can go back at some point. Thank you, Dr. Mike, for a wonderful introduction and being my wonderful mentor and supervisor since I arrived here. And thanks to the people from Southeast Asian Study, the professor, students, and Larry for supporting me through my PhD years. I haven't finished it yet, so don't drop me yet. Without your support, I wouldn't be able to read difficult texts of Michel Foucault and Derrida and Homi Bhabha and apply that in my research. And with this talk, I would like to share like one tiny little part, just tiny little part of my PhD research, and another part, a part of like my new projects, which I was aiming to do in my postdoctorate. So if you have some fellowship coming around, throw here. So my PhD research has focused on investigating the consequences of exclusionary ethnic nationalisms, Burman and Korean nationalism, by examining historical and contemporary language regarding educational practices. So, because to do that, I use Michel Foucault's genealogical approach, conjoining with Homi Bhabha ambivalence and hybridity concept. But in this talk, I'm just gonna talk about ambivalence. So what is ambivalence, right? The ambivalence of Homi Bhabha shows that the contradiction and anxiety of colonizer, colonized, and the colonial discourse itself. Ambivalence occurs during the negotiation between opposites in the process of making new representation or different cultural enunciation. So that's why I use ambivalence. And why I use genealogical approach. But people always said that is that like French white guy, why are you using this for your research, right? Genealogical approach is very useful for me because it gives me a look at the time jumping from like 600th century and then go to the 1920 and come to the contemporary. Just looking at the time as the period as the discourse where the power play within. So it's very useful. So I use this white guy thoughts, right? I think it's legit to use. So today I plan to talk about my presentation in two sessions. One is how nationalism makes a kind of people through national education system. That part is gonna be irritating, frustrating, mad, depressing. And another part is gonna be about how kind of people are made through activism. It's gonna be fun, positive, and imaginative. So first I thought that I could skip the depressing part, but I know you guys are in university and academia. You're dealing with depression then every day. You're used to it. So let's start with the first depression then. The nationalism, how the nationalism play in education in the global context with the example of United States.
The legacy of America's founding, the virtue of America's heroes, and the nobility of the American character. We must clear away the twisted web of lies in our schools and classrooms and teach our children the magnificent truth about our country. We want our sons and daughters to know that they are the citizens of the most exceptional nation in the history of the world. Through our shared identity as Americans, that is why it is so urgent that we finally restore patriotic education to our schools. Under our leadership, the National Endowment for the Humanities has awarded a grant to support the development of a pro-American curriculum that celebrates the truth about our nation's great history. Today, I'm also pleased to announce that I will soon sign an executive order establishing a national commission to promote patriotic education. It will be called the 1776 Commission.
So on September 17, 2020, the Constitution Day of the United States of America, the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump, held a White House History Conference to sign a document calling for a national commission to promote patriotic education called the 1776 Commission. In the midst of global pandemic and Black Lives Matter movement, following the killing of George Floyd, Trump responded to the protests and demonstration across the country with the 1776 Commission. In his speech, he stated that that mission was to defend the legacy of America founding and the nobility of American character. Teach the children about that in classroom and schools. So this is the 21st century example of how the nation is defined, how nationalism of the majority is interpreted, and how it attempts to manifest it in the education system. One, the nation imagines the community as a contagious with a certain kind of people. It excludes other individuals or identity that do not fit in with its prescribed category. The kind of people that the nation creates are embodied with the hope to hold the responsibility and obligation to make the government possible, and with the fear of difference and dangerous population that would prevent its ability to govern. The nationalization of different people with different cultures, languages, and norms requires schooling to unite by dissemination of the ideas and ideals of nation. So a little bit about Burma. Burma is a Southeast Asian country and composed of 135 constitutionally recognized ethnic groups with 111 spoken languages. Geographically, Burma has 7 ethnic states and 8 regions, dominated by majority Burman, which is made up of 70% of the country's population. So in my research, I view each ethnic group, community, and territory as a nation, leading me to view Burma as a transnational state. So why I view Burma as transnational state, right? As a departure from just the majority and minority binarism, I outline theory of modern nation using the classic Anderson imagined community, and then Tongchai's extension of Anderson theory by recognizing both the shared interests of the same community and the dissimilar interests of different communities. Burma studies scholars such as Gustav Hofmann said that national unity for Burma occurs not only at the institutional level, but as the individual level, not as secular ideology, but as Buddhism. Sakon, who is actually a Chin ethnic scholar, sees that each ethnic territory of Burma as a nation. He explained that the union, Pidangzu, in the union of Burma, Pidangzu Myanmar Nangan Do, means different nation within an administrative and legal unit. For him, Pidangzu should allow a peaceful coexistence of different ethnic groups with different cultures and religious background. Each ethnic national group imagines their own community as a nation and defines their own nationalism. That's why I view Burma as a country itself as transnational, and their nationalizations carved into education systems. During the British colonial time, the educated youth of Burma started imagining a community where the members share a common collective identity. Along with the nationalist sentiments, Burman nationalism, Burmanization as an ideology was raised in order to promote Burmese language, Buddhist religion, and Burman ethnicity against the colonial language, religion, and administration. After independence in the 1948, the Burman majority group attempted to achieve national unity through the Buddhist Burmese centrist nationalist project, which sought to control and discredit ethnic minority groups, thus leading to armed conflicts between Burman and ethnic groups. Education has been Burmanized for the purpose of nation building and in post-colonial Burma. The Burman nationalist movements towards independence of the country reinforced the language and cultural revolution in education and also in the social lives of people by resisting the colonial construction and by enabling them to share a common cultural identity of an imagined community. Reapproaching colonial discourse as ambivalence sparks debates on how the contemporary narration of nation and nationalism is formulated in the space of ambivalence in colonial discourse. So the first story to tell is the story of Mimic Man. The mimic man here means the subjects produced in colonial discourse with the partial presence of colonized and colonizer, both incomplete and virtual. The ambivalence of colonizer produced mimic man through the education system with the desire for useful bureaucracy and the fear of insurrection. So the first guy, Charles Grant, he was the chairman of East Indian Company. He said that the imitation of English manner, which will induce them, the colonial subjects, to remain under our protection. Macaulay, who was the education commissioner of British India in late 1800. At that time, Burma was under the name British India. Burma became British Burma after 1937. So it was also talking about Burma. A class of person, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinion, in morals, and in intellect. The ambivalence of colonial discourse produced the mimic man who holds the resemblance of the colonizer, almost the same, but not quiet. But at the same time, they are a threat to them. The mimic man created in the colonial discourse mock their creator. For example, Umeya. He was the president of Rangoon YMBA, warned that modern Burmans found themselves on all sides. They saw the ceaseless, endless tide of foreign civilization and leaning steadily creeping over the land, unless they prepare themselves to meet it, to overcome it, and to apply it to their own needs. Their national character, their institution, their very existence as a distant nationality would be swept away, submerged, irretrievably lost. Another example, Mambya, the education inspector of Mandalay, claimed that Buddhism is a living force and the basic of national character. History and literature embodied the ideas, inspiration, and characteristics of Burman. They are needed for the progressive development of Burman race under the British. Scholars of colonial Burma often articulate that state nationalism developed in tandem with anti-colonial nationalism, and ethnic nationalism appear in opposition to state nationalism. Means that if it is like Kachin nationalism or Kayin nationalism, it appear only against Burman nationalism, like state nationalism. But when I trace back to historical archives, I found there are like forms of ethnic resistance and ethnic nationalism as the form of anti-colonial nationalism under the colonial times. What I mean is that the groups, other than simply the Burmans, also developed form of anti-colonial nationalism against the British. One example is that there was a revolt stemming from the memory of tribal Satru or Kayin tribe in the 1850s. So when I say Kayin, sometimes it's Karen. I'm also in the ambivalence of being Kayin like American sound like Karen. So forgive my language. The deputy commissioner of Pathé, in his report he mentioned about that insurrection as a person styling himself as a Karen priest, studied that agitation. The British favorable attitudes toward Karen is constructed around the ambivalence of colonial discourse between the need for service of Karen and the danger of ethnic unification, which could lead to the turbulence. But this ambivalence turned out to be a space of resistance against the colonizer. The Kayin leaders founded the Young Kayin Association in the 1922, which became the Kayin National Union, which is still running as the headquarters of Kayin group, with the aim of encouraging Kayin youth to pursue higher education and educational opportunities abroad. At the high point of nationalism in Burma, Kenyan representatives were also in legislative council. So like one Burman member of legislative council were protesting to use Burmese language as the official language. So when I was at the British Library, I was reading this book like, one day it's gonna be like that thick. And every time I read of Burmese representative like talk, I have to go back to the appendix because they don't speak in English. So the translation is in the appendix. This is like how they're trying to make Burmese as the official language in the Legislative Council. And all of a sudden, there was a Korean guy. His name was Saul Padre. He is from the Way area, like the tiny little, the tail of Burma. And he started speaking in Korean. So the home president, he was like, what language are you speaking in? And then he said, yeah, it's Korean. And he said, I can't make myself understood perfectly, not even in Burmese. So they had to let him speak in Korean. When we check the written history of Korean and about Korean, the first one came up is of Smeaton's 1887 published book called The Loyal Kayin of Burma. In his book, he mentioned that Kayin were the first to be Christianized and civilized in Burma, and made sure to show the evidence of how Burmans had been cruel to Korean and how Koreans were so naive. He also mentioned the white Korean and black Korean in his book. Another famous one is of Reverend Harry Marshall, published in 1901. The book name is Kenyan People of Burma, and he talked about the white brother story. So like in our Korean tradition, we have a folklore saying that there are two Kenyan brothers. We have a book, and that book included all the Kenyan tradition and language and culture and belief. But the younger brother lost the book, so we lost our culture. But after centuries later, there was a white brother came back with the lost book, which is actually the Bible. So he claimed that he was confirming that story in that book in a written form. Another important book is by Sansi Po, published in 1928, called Burma and the Korans. Sansi Po was known to be and talked about as the first Korean who cultivated the idea of Kenyan nation and demanded political participation to a completely separate Korean nation. He was actually educated in the United States, and in his book, he repeated mostly of Smeaton's and Marshall, the previous two books, when he talks about what is Kenyan, right? But except one thing he left out, which is Black Korean. Black Korean meaning the Korean with darker skin, like this, with ancestral connection to Indian or Islam. The high point of Burman and Korean nationalism was no doubt with the enormous aid of Western education. It is to argue that the fear and desire of colonizer, the observer, created the partial present of the man, the mimic man. This partial present created by the ambivalence of colonial discourse opened up a space of resistance, in which the observed, the colonized, becomes the observer. After the independence, after 1 century later, the Burmese language became the center of everything in Burma. And there have been multiple ongoing civil war until now, right, between the ethnic armed groups and the Burmese military since independence. But in the beginning of 1950s and 60s, the ethnic armed groups such as Kayin, Kachin, and Mon started their ethnic national education systems, where the public education was not accessible. In their education system, they used the mother tongue-based multilingual medium of instruction. However, the ethnic national education systems are not officially recognized or allowed to join the public education system, even after the initiation of peace-building process in late 2011 or during that 10 year of the so-called democratic transition. No connection, and now it's rules, right? The nation-building projects produce and reproduce the kind of citizens that the nation desire in double gesture of hope and fear. I just talk about how like nationalism were formulated and representations were made with the scratches, patches, and rats in the colonial discourse. When we come back to the contemporary education system, right? Burma education system obviously only want to produce the kind of people with hope to become a Buddhist Burmese speaking Burman and the fear of non-Burman. But what about Kenyan education system? The Kenyan education system was established as the counter to Burmese education system. Actually, Kenyan has 13 tribal language. In yearly calendar, there are at least like 3 languages mentioned. However, in the education system, they only use Sagol Kenyan as the center of it. Sagol Kenyan is the Bible language, which is original language that the Bible was translated into, and also the language used by the first Kenyan proto-nationalist organization. Last year, I was conducting my ethnography research on the Thailand-Burma border, and I went to the Burma side too, like Kenyan side too. Work with the Kenyan Education Department to help develop curriculum framework and to give teaching training. When I interviewed the leader of this, like the Kenyan organization, who I really respect, and they really respect me, and they wanted to help me with my research. And I asked them about Kenyan education, and I also asked them about Black Quran, because I'm curious about my own identity, right? And they said there is no Black Quran. One uncle, actually he holds a very high executive position, and he told me that there is no Black Quran or Muslim in Quran. It was just after 88 student uprising, the Kenyan-speaking Muslims also joined the revolution with KNU. So for the sake of it, we call them Black Quran. Yet here is my ID. You can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 name about the ethnicity. And also I see I am Kenyan and Islam. I went to animist villages where they call themselves as Quran, but they are not practicing Christian. They are like spirit eater. In Burmese we call Nasare. And I visited a primary school where my host taught. And that teacher, she was like 18 years old animist Kenyan girl, told me that education is like a religion. It eats up language, beliefs, and culture. For her, she felt like she lost part of her current self in Christian practices. The nationalization of education transfers the national consciousness to both of those who are being included and excluded. The desire of being included within the things that exclude you makes you feel like exile within or internal exile, where one's become a stranger to one's own language, country, sex, and identity. This might be seen as an ambivalence in the motion. When you are wanting to be included in the things that excluded you, where Wendy Brown called wounded attachment, you lost the language to express your thoughts and feelings. So when I was talking about my ID, right, I got it when I was 28 years old and bribed $1,000. My brother is 34 years old now, he doesn't have ID. He is not recognized as human yet. One education system makes kinds of people through nationalism. It excludes kind of people at the same time. So what I got through so far is about how nationalisms in education systems make kind of people. Now I'm gonna explore a little bit more of like making kind of people in another wonderful perspective through activism. While nation-building projects of the state create certain kind of people that the state require, the activism open as spaces of resistance to create conditions for social change and social action possible and create another kind of people. Activism is a space of action where social movement can be formed, in which judgments are made, types of objects are recognized, and conclusions are drawn in the present as an effect of an anticipated future. Thus, it creates a curriculum in action along the paths of forming new subjectivities. So February 1st, 2021, we got a coup. It's ended 10 years of democratic transition. As soon as the coup started, people joined the civil disobedience movement. Teachers, practitioners, nurses, doctors came out on the street, joined the civil disobedience movement. People banging pots and pans at night. This is the traditional belief to kick the evils out of the society. and even Burma, the Burman from the middle Burma, came out to protest against Burman totalitarianism. Students refused to go to military control school, join the civil disobedience movement. It's just so beautiful, right? But it didn't last a month. In the mid-March, they started shooting kids on the street. They started shooting peaceful protesters on the street, arresting them, killing them. So we had to find a way. What are we gonna do about it, right? So there are some young people choose different paths. And one example is that People's Radio Myanmar. People's Radio Myanmar is a unique initiative to promote non-violent, multi-ethnic discourse using radio as a medium across conflict-stricken Burma. The vision of the initiative is to bring youth from different ethnic areas together to promote non-violent social change and free from political influence. And it is not merely a media platform, because we offer a communal space for dialogues among young people who are involved in multifaceted movement for social change. So this is like Dr. Mike introduced, when he introduced me, this is one of the two organizations that I founded with my students. Being involved in People's Radio Myanmar has given me hope that the future of Burma can be an inclusive one. I might not be left out, right? Working along with these young people, I have witnessed social cohesion among the diverse collectivity of groups and identity. I've observed that they are changing our perspective on issues such as Rohingya genocide, or LGBTQ, or women's issue, disabled rights, religious harmony, environmental issue, and so on. So as an activist and as a scholar, I am curious to learn more about how resistance and revolution open space, both for the exploration of individual agency and establishing a more pluralistic field of social action. So I conducted a participatory case study with my students. So in this case study, the participants are CDM students, teacher, activists, and citizen journalists. They are between the age of 16 to 27 from 13 different ethnic groups. I use the autoethnography method from curriculum study field, conjoining with the citizen journalist methods that we use for the trainees. So it has like both kind of training, both kind of workshop we did online and offline. So we conjoined the method of ethnography, and these are like a few like citizen journalism method, like interviewing, reporting, photography, dramatization, stuff like that, right? What we did is that we would sit together and brainstorm questions of like how the coup and COVID impacted on their education and life before and now. What are they doing? What were they doing? What are they doing now? What kind of education they got? What are they getting now? That kind of question. We brainstorm together and ask and talk with each other. And I said the first week that we were doing a report style. So by the end of the discussion, they wrote a report about their discussion and recorded and broadcasted on the radio. Another one is that another week we did an art and music week. So this is the one of the student who is second year CDM student, and then he said that when the coup started, he was so sad, right? He lost his future, and then he was like, I have to fight back, and then he joined the resistance, and he lost one of his leg in my landmine, so he was like, I don't care anymore, and he came to Mesa, and he was in the hospital, and he met us, and he worked with us. And he said, finally, he is now like, I can stay smart. This is their life. And these two are from two CDM teacher. This one is like the female teacher who was talking about like the time, the previous time, how beautiful it was. And then the airstrike came and the future is all dark and all blood. But another teacher see that the future is coming. It is the dawn, the lights are coming. And this one is actually a poem that the girl, she is actually from forestry department. She joined the civil disobedience movement. It's become a song now. They are getting like different kind of education from these education provider. most of them are like self-organized education provider, not like state control. And 1 week we did that interview style, like citizen journalism method. So one student was like, yeah, I just wanted to play games and like have big motorbike and like have girlfriends, but now the coup happened, so I have to document human rights violation and let people know that they're reliable news. So he is now dedicated to journalism. That's become his life. And this one is that he was just like, just wanted to be a businessman, but now the coup happened, I changed my mind, I want to be the minister of Bogor region. And that kid, he was like, he wanted to be an artist. He wanted to write poems and paint. So we made it his dream come true because it's easier. He wrote poems and we recorded and broadcast on the radio. And these are his paintings. We sold it and exhibited in Bangkok with a big exhibition. There are other students who are state CDM teachers, so they just keep wanting to teach. So we give them like teaching trainee, English language trainee, civic trainee, stuff like that, and they are now teaching online. And this is the photography week, right? This one with the tent, it has a beautiful story. That kid actually, what we did is that I asked them to pick a picture that is remarkable for them. And then that kid picks this picture. He is from a wealthy family. He joined the revolution because his friend joined. And then he said that when he was younger, he hated Muslims. And because he was taught to hate them, so he chased his Muslim friend and fed them pork. This is how much he hated them. But one night there was an airstrike. So he was running together with these Muslim friends and hiding in that tent together, sleeping there under the same blanket. And he realized that we are all oppressed. We are all the same. And we are good people. That's like his realization. That's the moment that he shared with us. And this one actually like that two-piece style. The cake, that one student, he was just missing his family, a good time of his birthday, which he cannot have now. And this one is the picture that one of the kids chose that his best friend got head shot on the street at the protest. So yeah. And throughout our discussion, I was also learning that they are learning about each other. Like I said, we have 135 ethnic groups, and the number is contested. Nobody knows how many actually. But the education system only make us to know about Burma. So I didn't know about any other thing except Kayen and more. But through this radio program, from the top to the tail of Burma, we learn about each other. Like food, like how to say direction even in Burmese, and the games that we play. And we also work with Indiana University by hosting their intern student to produce English language content together with our student. And they give credits for these students, their university. And I see that these American students are learning from these Burmese revolutionary activists, and these young kids are also learning from them. You know, like it's just really beautiful cultural exchange things going on. I want to show the video. We have time. I want to show the video of them.
ပြည်တော်စုသမ္မတမြန်မာနိုင်ငံတော်တော်ကာဝေးရေးချုပ်ရုံးတည်ကြေညာချက်မှတ်တင်မြင့်ဆောင်2021ခု
The military has carried out a coup d'etat in Myanmar.
President Biden's pledge to defend democracy
and detaining civilian officials, including their leader, Aung San Suu Kyi.
People's Radio မြန်မာဆိုတာပြည်သူတွေကပေါက်ပါလို့ပြည်သူနဲ့တသားတည်းတည်ရှိနေတဲ့ပြည်သူရေဒီယိုဖြစ်ပြီးပြည် သူတွေအတွက်တရင်မှန်ရဖို့နေရာဒေသတိုင်းမှာရှိတဲ့လူငယ်တွေရဲ့အတန်းတွေစုံလင်ဖို့လူငယ်တွေရဲ့အိမ်မက်တွေကိုအကောင့်ထဲပေါ်နိုင်တဲ့နေရာတစ်ခုဖြစ်ပြီးမြန်မာပြည်တဝန်းကမတူကွဲပြားမှုတွေကိုသိယူလေ့လာနိုင်မှုနဲ့ပြောင်းလဲနိုင်ဖို့နေရာဒေသဆောင်ကတရင်တွေမတူကွဲပြားတဲ့အစီအစဉ်တွေကိုဘာသာစကားစုံလင်စွာနဲ့နားဆင်နိုင်မယ် PBS Radio မြန်မာပဲဖြစ်ပါတယ်
ရှော့ငေငွေပြောအထွဲပရိုကလောမင်္ဂလာတဲ့တေမိုဘစီလောပလီ
Naga News para सबके सलाम दिया से और सब मानवी बालिया से ला
Hello nasabai dingo mutupi chen state lam lo goodbye kintu hu
Tali zwa ba arkan zakawa ga ni pyu su bare shin Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh
They work
အားလုံး
together
မင်္ဂလာပါခင်ဗျာဒီကတန်အနေကြိုးဆိုပါရစေ
မင်္ဂလာပါ PBS Radio မြန်မာရဲ့ Dragon Voice Network မှာကြိုဆိုပါရစေ
မိုင်ဆောင်ခါဥဆိုကလေးကိုကတဲ့ပကွက်မှုပါသူလဖာစီတန်တာကဆိုတနေနေနော်
မငိုးတယ်ဟာ
မင်္ဂလာပါရှင်
Radio တန်တွေကိုနောက်ဆွေရဲ့ပြည်သူ့ဘက်ရဲ့ဒီကရှေ့ဆက်မယ်ပြည်သူ့ Radio ပြည်သူ့ Radio ဟောလာပြည်သူ့ Radio
ကျမကတော့မွန်ပြည်နယ်မှာရှိတဲ့ကျောင်းသားလူငယ်တွေစုပေါင်းပြီးလုပ်နေတဲ့ရမညပြည်သူအဖန်အဖွဲ့သားတစ်ယောက်ဖြစ်ပါတယ်ပြည်သူလူထုတွေအားလုံးကခက်ခဲနေကြတယ်ပေါ့လေကုန်စည်နှုန်းအစမတန်မြင့်တက်တာတွေနောက်ပြီးတော့တွားရေးလာရေးခက်ခဲတာတွေစီးပွားရေးတွေကျဆင်းတာတွေနောက်ငွေကြေးတန်မှုနှိပ်လာတာတွေပေါ့လေဒါတွေချောက်ရောအလုပ်การရှားပါတာတွေချောက်ရောအကုန်လုံးကသူ့အနေနဲ့သူခက်ခဲနေကြတာပေါ့လေ
ဒီမှာက PBS Radio မြန်မာရဲ့Green Voice team ကဖြစ်ပါတယ်အနာသိမ့်ပြီးတော့ဒီ February နဲ့ March လေလောက်ထိတော့တပိတ်တွေပဲထွက်ဖြစ်တာပေါ့နော်ဒီမှာဒီမတိုင်ခင်ကကျောင်းသားတက္ကသိုလ်ကျောင်းသားပေါ့နော်တတိယနှစ်ကျောင်းမပြီးသေးဘူးပြီးတော့သမဂအတွင်းဟိုဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်တပိတ်စစ်ကျောင်းတွေကိုပဲအဓိကဦးဆောင်ပြီးတော့စီစဉ်ဖြစ်တဲ့ဒီသမဂကရေဘော်တချို့ဖတ်မိရပေါ့နော်ဒီမှာဝရန်ထွက်သွားတယ်ပြီးတော့အဲ့ဒီအချိန်မှာဒီစစ်တပ်ကလည်းအရန်ကိုဖိနေနဲ့ဖြုတ်ခွဲနေရာတွေတွေ့ရတော့အရင်ပြန်ချကျင်တာပေါ့
ပို့ပြီးတော့ကောင်းမွန်တဲ့နိုင်ငံစနစ်ကိုချင်းကပ်နိုင်မှုရဲ့ပြည်သူလူထုရဲ့အပိကိုဖွင့်ပြနိုင်မှုတော့ကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ non-violent action အဖြစ်နဲ့ဒီရာမညပြည်ပဲရွှေမြန်မာရဲ့ရာမညပြည်သူအဖန်အစီအစဉ်တွေမှာကျွန်တော်စတင်ပြီးတော့မှဆောင်ရွက်ဖြစ်တာဖြစ်ပါတယ်ကြီးမားမားအခက်အခဲတစ်ခုအနေနဲ့ကကြတော့ non-violent action ဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မို့ပြည်သူလူထုကိုတည်တင်ထားတယ်ကျွန်တော်ဖြောင်းဝင်ရတာမျိုးရှိတယ်ဆိုတော့အမှန်တရားဘက်ကနေရက်ပြီးတော့မှပြောရတာမျိုးတွေရှိတယ်တစ်ချိန်တည်းမှာပဲပြည်သူလူထုရဲ့အသိဉာဏ်တွေပြီးတဲ့ဟာကြရင်စစ်အုပ်စုရဲ့အားနည်းချက်တွေအားသာချက်တွေစသဖြင့်ဒါတွေကိုတော်လှန်ရေးကာလမှာထောက်ကူပြုနိုင်တဲ့ပုံစံတစ်ခုအနေနဲ့တင်ဆက်ရတာမျိုးတွေလည်းဖြစ်တယ်တော်လှန်ရေးကာလရဲ့လိုအပ်ချက်အရာဒီလိုလောက်ရတာဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မို့စစ်အုပ်စုရဲ့ညမောင်ကြိုးတဲ့အုပ်စုတွေမှာဆိုကျွန်တော်တို့အုပ်စုတွေပါတယ်လို့ပြောလို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်ပြည်သူလူထုရဲ့တော်လှန်ရေးပြည်သူတရက်လုံးရဲ့တော်လှန်ရေးဖြစ်တဲ့စစ်အာဏာရှင်စနစ်ကိုဖြုတ်ချပြီးတော့မှ Federal Democracy စနစ်ကိုတည်ဆောက်မယ်ဆိုတဲ့ပန်းနိုင်ကိုမရောက်မချင်းကိုကျွန်တော်လေးတွားကြမှုဖြစ်ပါတယ်
ဒီအကြမ်းဖက်စစ်ကောင်ဆောင်တွေကကျွန်တော်ရဲ့နိုင်ငံမှာတရားနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့ဒီအာဏာသိမ်းတဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီနေရာနေပြီးတော့စင်ကျင်တော်လှန်နေတယ်သူတို့ရဲ့ထောက်ထိုင်နေဘယ်လိုဖြုတ်ချမလဲဆိုတာကိုကျွန်တော်တို့စူးစမ်းနေတယ်ဒီ PBS Radio မြန်မာမှာ volunteer စစ်တပ်ကနိုင်ငံတော်တရားပြအားလာတဲ့အဲ့ဒီအချိန်မှာတောင်းလက်မခံနိုင်တဲ့တပြည်လုံးကလူတွေကကျွန်တော်တို့လမ်းပေါ်ထွက်ပြီးတော့နေနေချင်းချင်းဆန္ဒထွက်ပြတယ်သူတို့လိုချင်အောင်တောင်းဆိုနေကြတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့ဒါကိုအကြမ်းဖက်စစ်ကောင်ဆောင်တွေကသူတို့ရဲ့ထုံးစံတိုင်းအကြမ်းဖက်ပြီးတော့ဖြေရှင်းနေကြတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ပြည်သူတွေကိုရေးရဆက်ဆက်တတ်တယ်ဖမ်းနေထောင်ချတယ်တချို့လူငယ်တွေနိုင်ငံရေးသမားတွေကိုသူတို့ဖမ်းဆီးနှိပ်စက်ပြီးတော့သူတို့ဖမ်းနေတဲ့အချိန်တွင်းမှာပဲအသက်သေဆုံးသွားတာရှိတယ်ဒီလိုနဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကငြိမ်းငြိမ်းချမ်းချမ်းဆန္ဒဆက်ပြလို့မရတော့တဲ့အခြေအနေမှာဖြစ်သွားတယ်လူငယ်တွေကတချို့ကလည်းလက်နက်ကင်ပြီးတော့တောင်းနိုင်ကြဖို့ဆုံးဖြတ်ကြတယ်ဒီလက်နက်ကင်တဲ့လမ်းစဉ်ကိုရွေးချယ်ခဲ့တယ်ဒီချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့ကလည်းကိုယ်နိုင်တဲ့ဘက်ကဒီ non-violent ဖြစ်တဲ့ media ပိုင်းတွေဒီဒေါ်လာရေးမှာ media ရဲ့တည်စီစဉ်မှုကလည်းတကယ်ပဲအရေးကြီးအောင်နောက်တခြားထောက်ပံ့နိုင်တဲ့အပိုင်း CDM တွေစစ်ပြေးရှောင်းတွေနောက်ဒီတော်ရရဲဘော်တွေသူတို့လိုအဲ့ဒါတွေကိုကူညီဖို့အတွက်ဒီထောက်ဖို့လို့ခေါ်တာပေါ့ထောက်ဖို့လမ်းကြောင်းအဲ့ဒါကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ကရွေးချယ်ပြီးတော့လုပ်ကိုင်ဖို့ဆုံးဖြတ်ထားကြတယ်ဒါကိုကျွန်တော်တို့တွန်းလှန်ဖို့လိုတယ်ကိုလိုချင်တဲ့ဘဝတွေနောက်လိုချင်တဲ့လွတ်လပ်ခွင့်တွေရအောင်ကိုယ့်ကိုတိုက်ထုတ်ယူရမယ်ပုံဖော်ရမယ်တစ်နှစ်နဲ့မရလို့ရှိရင်နှစ် နှစ်နဲ့မပြည့်ရင်လည်းဘယ်လောက်ထိလဲပေါ့နော်9နှစ်လား10နှစ်လားကျွန်တော်73နှစ်နေရမှာပဲဒီအကြံဖတ်သမားတွေအာဏာရှိ
Actually still have like 3 more minutes in the video. We can see it later. It's online on YouTube. People's Radio Myanmar, you can find it on YouTube. It's advertisements. So let me conclude my presentation. The oscillation and interaction of social space through the interplay of smoothing and straightening that occurs in turbulence and displacement. In this time of resistance, the conflict and displacement create radical traumatic upheaval that results in an unsettling of social hierarchies. In this space of disruption, education is similarly loosened from many of the straight hierarchies which typically characterize schooling, and creating distinctive education practice and relationship that constructs with government control formal education. As a student of curriculum and instruction, I have to study these like curriculum theories, right? But what I'm seeing with my kids is the novel practice that being developed by teachers and students collectively in this outer space. Though utopian curriculum, this one, would be the best for us, but we see that the utopian practice emerge through the construction that offer insights of learning about the possibility and priorities for community-led education in conflict as the site of anti-authoritarian resistance. So showing activism and social movement as a form of collective knowledge creation. So if making a better life for individual and collective society is the goal of education, then activism and social movement can also be understood as creating a kind of people, a kind of educated people who want a better society for themselves and others. Thank you so much.